Go.
Welcome to Concordia Church Online. We are happy that you're here. I am here with the Parch family.
Hello.
Hi. It actually is Aaron's birthday today, so we feel so privileged and blessed to spend a few moments with him on his birthday. Well, right now, we are in a series called Prayer, Conversations with God, and Pastor Schmidt is taking us into the Lord's Prayer. It's been an amazing series. We're glad that you're here, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, but right now, join us as we gather our hearts together in a time of worship. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Hi. Some of you have been connecting with us for a while, and you've been a part of this message series and many different ones, but some of you are tuning in for the first time today. So I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Richard. I'm the pastor here at Concordia, and thanks for being a part of this series of prayer as conversations with God. Also wanted to give a shout out today to my brother. This weekend, actually on Sunday, is his birthday. He gave a shout out to me a couple weeks ago. He's also a pastor, and he's preaching a series right now on the Ten Commandments. If that's an interest of yours, I want to encourage you. He's got some really good information there. Go ahead and YouTube Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church, Waukesha, Wisconsin, and you'll find some good stuff there. As I said before, we're in the middle of a message series on prayers, conversations with God. We're in the how-to part as Jesus teaches us how to pray in what we've called the Lord's Prayer. The part today is the part we're most used to talking about with prayer. It's the gimme part, the asking for stuff. We're going to dig into how we have conversations with God about that. I also want to encourage you not just to have conversations with God, but to have conversations with me and with each other. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, there's a comment field. Please use it. Use it to ask a question. Use it to make a comment. We won't be checking in real time. We Netflix church just like we Netflix everything else, but we will be checking in. I'll be commenting back if you've got a question or comment there. So please use that. And finally, a word about financial giving, our offerings. Here's what at Concordia we believe. We believe that anything that we give is not something that we're giving to try to fulfill a religious duty or make God like us more. We give in response. We give in response to recognizing that God has richly and daily blessed us. I can't tell you where to give. I can tell you that God says you ought to give somewhere. You ought to give because where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. And because when you give, it draws you closer to the heart of God. Give where your heart is. Give regularly, give consistently, give generously. If your heart happens to be here at Concordia, here's the best way to give. It's to go to our website, concordiachurch.com, and click the Give tab and follow that down from there. It's a very secure way to give. You can download our app in the App Store. The colors kind of look like the little Microsoft logo, and it's got a little house in it that says Concordia Church and School. There's a Give tab there as well. Those are probably the best, securest ways to give. Thanks for being a part of us today as we have these conversations about talking with God.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I walked out of that grave. into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. Mercy has freed my soul. Freedom is all that I know. The old made new. Jesus, when I met you, you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy. Chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. 'Cause when you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day.
So I want you to think back to March, when the COVID-19 lockdown first hit. When it hit, was there something that you didn't have that you needed? Or if you did happen to venture out to the stores that were open as essential businesses, what did you need that you couldn't find? I mean, at the beginning of this whole mess, there was a whole bunch of stuff that you could not find anywhere. No way, nowhere, no how were you going to find this. Couldn't find it in the stores, couldn't find it online, couldn't find it anywhere. And suddenly, people are having all these conversations about needs that they never had before. I, for one, am really glad that a couple of weeks before this happened, I had already gone to Costco and gotten things like the toilet paper and the big pack. I didn't know anything was coming. So when I see all these conversations about, any of you remember those ones about like alternative to toilet paper? I am so glad I didn't have to go there, right? But the whole idea of needs suddenly became a very important conversation. Well, that's kind of where Jesus turns us to today in this how-to on prayer. In what we've come to know as the Lord's Prayer, each one of those phrases is like a topic sentence. It says, here's where you want to pause and think about the sort of things that go under here and pray about them. Well, today is praying about the stuff that we want, the stuff that we need, the stuff that we ask God for, for ourselves and for other people. As we pray, give us our daily bread. So I want to kind of parse into that one phrase at a time. Starts with the word give. Jesus says, when you pray this, pray give. Now, at first glance, I'm thinking, is that kind of like demanding? Is that precocious? Is that pretentious? Should a mere mortal come into the presence of God by saying, gimme? Shouldn't there be a little bit of like fear and trembling? Or maybe at least a little bit of, bowing my head, humble, excuse me, sir, Lord God, if it's not too much bother, would you maybe consider, please, and then just kind of back away? And that's not how Jesus teaches us to pray. Remember, he teaches us to pray like little kids, like those 2 and 3-year-olds. And so he's saying, pray like this little kid. Gimme, please, right? Because that's how kids ask. They ask boldly. I want it. And most kids aren't very shy about telling you what they want, are they? Ask as boldly, ask persistently. Ever know a little kid to give up at the first no? Me neither. Ask boldly, ask persistently, and then ask about anything and everything. Because everything to a little kid, even the small things, are big things, right? And so because they're big things to a little kid, God says they're big things to me, so ask about them. Ask for what really are the big things, yeah. Also ask for the small things, like, God, where did I leave my keys? Would you show me that? Or like this morning, what happened to me? I turn on my computer, except it's not turning on. And then I turned it on again, and I saw, oh no, Windows is again deciding to update all on its own, and it's been doing that for a while, and always seeming to get stuck at like 91%, and then I gotta shut it down and hope it comes back, and I'm like, wait, daily bread. Small need. So, God, please, would you help it get to 100% today? Just pass that 91% right by. And you know what? That's what happened. Pray about that small stuff. Pray about the big stuff. Pray about everything in between. See, what Jesus is saying is pray for the things we need, pray for the things you want, pray for the things you desire, pray for physical things, pray for emotional things, pray for relational things, pray for spiritual things, pray for everything. Not because you think Dad owes it to you, but because you know he can give it to you. And because you know that he loves to give good things to his kids. And that kind of brings us to Jesus' big point that goes through the whole conversation today about this asking for daily bread. The point Jesus is making is, as you pray, remember the Lord provides. The Lord provides. So, ask. But don't just ask for yourself. Do ask for yourself, but don't just ask for yourself. The next phrase is give us our daily bread. Give us today our daily bread. Not just me and my, but us and our. And I think in doing that, Jesus reminds us that while we have our own needs, and yes, God does want us to talk to him about those personal needs that we have, he also wants us to talk to him about the needs that other people have. Because they have a lot of needs too, and we're not just asking for ourselves in this prayer, we're also asking for others, because those words, us and our, remind us, number one, that we're part of a community. Lots of communities, actually. Our family, our church community, our mission partners throughout the world, my block, my neighbors, my neighborhood, my city, our country, even the world. We're part of the human community. And as part of those communities, Jesus is reminding us in this part of the prayer that we have a responsibility to care for others in those communities. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about justice as a biblical value. And if justice, as God defines it, is speaking up for those who can't speak for themselves and helping those who can't help themselves, then community values is caring for others in the community. Caring for others in the community. And part of the ways that we care for others is by praying. And that's why Jesus reminds us, not give me my daily, we're going to remember to pray for me, but also pray for other people. Give us today our daily bread. Whether it's people you know, I mean, that's really where you ought to start, but even if it's people that you don't. I'm recalling a story from Genesis chapter 18, where Abraham's praying for the city of Sodom. God's just told Abraham that Sodom's so wicked that he's going to come down and destroy it. And Abraham's nephew Lot is in that city, so he starts praying for the city. Not just, God, would you protect Lot and his family? Not just, God, would you keep Lot safe? Not just, God, would you rescue Lot and then destroy the rest of the city? No, Lot and his family are probably the only people knows in that city at all, because Abraham's not going to Sodom. It's not his vacation spot. And what is he doing? He prays this: God, if there's 50 righteous people, would you spare the city? How about if there's 40, 30, 20, 10? Right? He's praying for his family, but he's also praying for those that he doesn't know. And that's what this part of the prayer is reminding us. We pray for others, even those you don't know. Give us today our daily bread. Now here's how that concept plays out for me. One of those ways is being strategic about it. And by being strategic about it, I'm going to every day think, how am I going to pray for? Who am I going to pray for? What needs do others have? Some of the needs that I know, I'm usually going to start with my closest to me, kind of from the inside out, so that I always remember to pray for others. I'm praying for my wife, praying for my kids. When my kids were in the house, sometimes we'd just be talking about things during the day or around the dinner table, and I wouldn't say, I'll pray about that, but I'd listen, and I'd hear that was a concern for them, and that evening I'd pray about that. I also use the prayer list that some of our Concordia community put out, and they send prayer needs requests in, and I'm on that distribution, so I'm going to be praying about those things. So that's kind of the way I strategically remember to do that. And then there's some things that are just more random, I guess I'd say. That comes at those times where I just wake up for some reason in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep. And if I'm not going back to sleep for a while, I start thinking, well, maybe I ought to be praying for someone. That intercessory prayer, that standing in the gap and lifting them up and supporting and caring for their needs. So I start asking, God, who should I be praying for right now? And a lot of times some of those needs will come to mind. And I start saying, well, okay, then God help so-and-so with this. Or God give so-and-so this. Or God, they need that. They're really hurting right now. Sometimes it was even standing in for people that I didn't know or need I didn't know. I think about one of our partners in missions, in Mission India. And they're 11 and a half hours ahead of us. So I wake up at 3 in the morning and I'm thinking, wait, it's 3 in the afternoon. Is something going on in India? Is some church under attack? Is some believer under attack? And start praying for the needs of people in India. Because that's what God asks us to do, to intercede for others. to stand in the gap, to pray not just for ourselves, but for other people. As you're hearing this, you might be thinking of people, or you might be asking, God, who should I be praying for like right now? Because there's just so many people and there's so many needs, and I kind of get lost in the sea. Well, my simple advice on that one is, a suggestion, I guess, is just saying, ask God. Ask God about that. Have a conversation with God saying, God, who needs my prayer support right now? God, who needs me to stand in the gap for them? Who needs me to intercede for them? God, would you just bring them to mind? Would you give me a burden for them? Would you help me stand in and intercede for them? And then write their name down in a place you'll remember, like your phone. Write their name down so you remember it, and then write down that need that God's brought to your mind, and keep praying about it until that particular burden on your heart is gone. Because we don't just pray for ourselves, do we? Give us today our daily bread, Jesus teaches. Let's pause right now for a minute to do that. What I want you to do is to stop and right in this moment, think about someone else who needs God's help and pray for them. If you're watching this with someone else or listening with somebody else or sharing it to somebody else, take a moment to even talk about that. Have a conversation about who should we be praying for? Who could we be praying for? And what's that need? And then pray for that right now. When you finish with that, then hit play again and we'll come back and have a conversation about that third phrase, daily bread.
So the next central part of this prayer is the phrase, daily bread. I mean, what does that even mean? Is it literally bread? Like, God, give us bread. Bread is good and all, but bread's not the only thing that I eat. Sometimes it's the only thing I want to eat, but it's not the only thing I eat. I mean, vegetables, meat, all those kinds of things, sweets, they're not bread. What am I really asking God for? I mean, in Jesus' time, bread kind of was one of the main and only foods for a lot of people. And honestly, in our world today, for a lot of people, bread or rice is the main food that they eat. So maybe what we're getting at is, God, give me the food that sustains me. But I think it goes a little deeper than that. I think we're also asking God to fulfill our needs. You know, if bread is what we need to live, you know, as shorthand for food, we're asking God, can you give me the things that we need? You know, daily bread. God, can you give me the things that I need today? But daily doesn't just mean today. Daily means every day, right? So we're asking for the things that we need today, tomorrow, because for a lot of us, there's going to be a tomorrow, and going into the future, all of the things that we need. When we say daily bread, I think we're asking God to give us the things that we need, the things that sustain us, the things that we need to live today, tomorrow, and into the future.
Thanks, Alex, for that teaching. That was really, really helpful. And I think, like a lot of times, Jesus wants us to see all those four different shades of meaning here. But if there's one that I had to pick that I would zoom in on saying, I think he's really saying, don't miss this, it's the daily needs. Because that really connects with the context that Jesus was living in. I mean, Jesus lived in a time where a whole lot of people were living day to day. I mean, day to day meaning they weren't thinking about a Christmas list or the list of just gotta have it toy or device. They were thinking about food. And not a feast, just enough food for the day. And for a lot of people, bread was the main meal of the day. A lot of times, bread was the only thing that they had. And if they were lucky enough to maybe have some lentil soup, they'd use the bread to scoop in and use it kind of as their spoon. If they were really lucky and had a little piece of meat or a fish, again, they'd wrap the bread around it and use that as their utensil. So Jesus is saying bread is what's needed for life. So when you're praying for daily bread, pray first for your daily needs. Another part of the context where Jesus was living was that most workers were paid daily. They worked a day, they got paid at the end of the day, and what they got paid was usually so low that it was just enough to cover what they needed to go buy a meal. So if you didn't work, you didn't eat. If you didn't get paid, you didn't eat. They didn't purchase stuff in advance. They just lived day to day. Almost impossible for us to understand that. But that was their world. So again, Jesus is saying, by daily bread, give me this daily need. And just a note for your prayers, there are places like where some of our mission partners are working, in Mexico and in India and in Guatemala, where that kind of condition still exists for a lot of people. That they're working daily, getting paid daily, and getting paid daily barely enough to make it by just for the day's needs. And that's hard in any sort of circumstance. But with a lot of these worldwide COVID lockdowns, a lot of those people can't work. And if they don't work, they don't eat. So would you, in this praying for daily bread, take some time, jot in your phone right now so you remember to pray for those people in places like that. Pray for that daily need of food, that daily need of being sustained for life. And pray for our mission partners as they're going in the gaps there and they're wading in and helping those people, that not only do they help provide physically for them, but that also gives them opportunities to give them spiritual food, to share about the hope and healing that's in Jesus' name. Okay, that's what we're talking about with give us our daily bread. In the context that I think Jesus is saying about our needs. Now, when we think of ourselves, most of the time we start with that big, long list, right? Here's the stuff I need, and God, give me that. And here's the stuff that I want, and give me that. And understand that God does want to hear all that. God does want to hear about your needs. He does want to hear about your wants. But again, in the context where Jesus is saying, using the words daily bread, I think he's saying, really start by focusing on that need area so that you don't take God's provision for granted. Okay, now some of those needs are consistent, right? Things like food, clothing, shelter, water, air, etc. Those are things we need for survival, and pray for them because you need them. But also as you pray for them, remember that those basic needs aren't like entitlements. They're gifts. They're gifts from God. James chapter 1, verse 17, every good and perfect gift is from above. Right? So pray for those basic needs and remember that they're gifts from God. But don't stop there, because not only are some things the same every day, some of those needs change daily, right? Now, some of that you can see coming. I mean, it's probably not really a shock if you've got a 25-year-old appliance and one day it goes out. But if you got a brand new car and it conks out, or if you got a brand new appliance and it suddenly quits, then you're like, well, I didn't see that one coming. Or your funds suddenly, you're not spending wildly, but then something like COVID-19 happens and your funds suddenly dry up. Or COVID-19 shows up. Nobody saw that one coming. And then all of a sudden there's all these needs, individual needs, needs for our church community, funding needs. Give us our daily bread also means pray for those needs as they come up, right when they come up. I mean, don't worry about them. Jesus is saying when they come up, instead of worrying about them, pray about them. And here's another little note. When somebody asks you to pray for them, or when a need suddenly comes to your mind, life is so hectic and overwhelming. Here's what I've started to do. Just to stop when somebody asks me and to take 30 to 60 seconds and to pray about that need right then. And I think that's what Jesus is really telling us here. When those needs come up, pray about them as they come up. Pray for your daily needs. Pray for new needs that seem to come up daily. And then pray also for those daily, what I'll call those daily variations. Okay, sometimes, what I mean by that is sometimes the big need is the same. Let's say you might have cancer, something like that. But each day, what it takes to go through that struggle with cancer might vary. You're praying for the cancer to be gone, but you're also praying for what you need to make it through the day. Some days the need might be, God, give me the strength I need for today. Other days it might be, God, give me the patience I need. It might be, give me the patience I need with this person who's struggling with this. Sometimes it might be, God, give me the rest. Sometimes it might be, God, take the edge off the side effects here. Oh, God, send me some support, might be another day's needs. Or God, help me know that I'm not alone. See, you get the idea here? In praying for daily bread, Jesus is saying, pray about all those things daily. Pray about your daily needs. Pray about the needs that come up daily. Pray about those variations in the daily needs for the big things. And as you're doing that, remember, the Lord provides. The Lord provides what we need. And really, daily, Jesus is saying we need him to do that. Reminds me of another story in the Old Testament, Exodus chapter 16. The Israelites had just been rescued from Egypt, but now they're wandering out in the desert. And there is not enough food and water for all of them out there in the desert. So what does God do? He provides. He provides this special food, manna. But he provided that manna for them one day at a time. One day at a time for the next 40 years. So here's the thing about manna. It was sufficient for the needs of each day. Nothing more, nothing less. Just the needs of each day. Just what was needed. You couldn't store manna for the next day. If you tried to, it would just spoil. So every single day, every single morning, God provided that manna, provided what you needed for the day. Over time, here's what happened. Those people who were so stubbornly independent actually ended up learning trust and dependence on God. As God provided for their needs every single day, 40 years of one days at a time. And that, too, is what I think Jesus maybe is alluding to a little bit in this praying for daily bread. I think that sometimes, the answer for our prayer in that day isn't the solution to the whole problem at once. That's what we want, that's what we pray for, that's what we hope for, but sometimes the solution is more, here's what you need to make it through today. Here's what you need to make it through the day, and then tomorrow, here's what you need to make it through the tomorrow. And then the day after that, here's what you need to make it through the day after that. Israel spent 40 years in the desert before their food problem was solved. And maybe sometimes that's what your big issue feels like to you. I'm thinking maybe some of you are in the middle of something right now. In the middle of something that's really, really hard, that's really stressing you out, that you find it hard to see where the solution's going to come from, that you find it hard to figure out how you're going to make it through. And you're praying and you're praying and you're praying, but the issue's still there. And you're saying, God, are you providing for my daily bread? Well, maybe even when the whole issue isn't solved, God is providing for the daily thing that you need to make it through that day. Might be an encouraging word. that someone speaks to you. Might be a person that comes into your life that you can lean on. Might be some good advice from someone to change something. Might be some unexpected funds that come from somewhere. Might be, well, you get the idea, right? Give us our daily bread means this, that the Lord provides what we need for each day's need, each day at a time. And when, like the people of Israel who were in the desert, begin to see that, when we begin to see the manna that's coming every day, how God's satisfying the need we have right now, how daily and richly God is providing for the day, well then our trust and dependence in God starts to grow. And when it does, our attitude and our outlook starts to change for the better. To get some perspective on that process, and it's a process, watch this.
Lord, I'm struggling. Show me what I have to be thankful for.
By the way, it's not a bill. It must be umpteen bills. It calls upon the Senate Finance Committee to go to work on a tax reform. Well, the first thing we want to make sure is that we raise the tax rate.
Lord, I'm struggling. Show me what I have to be thankful for.
I think sometimes I'm like that guy in the video. I am so focused on what's coming up, or I'm so focused on what's going on ahead, or what's going on around me right now, or what I'm stressed out about in the moment, that I don't pause to look at what God's already given me. Especially now, especially in this wacky and crazy 2020 when there are days I don't even know what day it is. Right? And I'm just not pausing as much as I used to just look around and notice. And I think that that's one of the things that Jesus is also kind of driving me toward here in this give us our daily bread. And that when we focus especially and remember what our needs are, and remember that they're blessings, it starts to alter my attitude. And it alters my attitude for the better. Here's how. You see, when I look around and see those things and I pause and I remember that they're a gift, and I remember to say thank you, right? Because that's what you do, right? When you get a gift, you say thank you. And when I say thank you, what I'm doing is recognizing that even when I'm in the desert, I'm also acknowledging that I've still got blessings and that what I have is a gift from God. And I'm starting to realize how blessed I am even in difficult times. And then from that, I start to develop an attitude of a little more gratitude. And then when gratitude starts to take hold, then I start to develop a little more contentment. And I start to become a little less focused on all the problems and what I don't have, and a little more focused on what I have. And being content for the blessing. And then I start getting to a much better place. Right? And my attitude started to turn around. It's not completely there yet, but it's started. And peace and joy start to replace the whining and complaining and feeling sorry for myself or feeling depressed about my situation. And I start to see that even in the dark, God's light hasn't gone out. And it's starting to show me, among other things, that I still have things to be grateful for. That I still have things to be thankful for. That God still richly and daily gives good gifts to me to provide for my life. And then I start to feel thankful. When I start to feel thankful, I start to feel better. And when I start to develop some gratitude, I start to feel better. And when I start sharing with others, when I start giving, I start to feel better as I see that, yes, God has given me things and I can also bless others with those. So I think that's part of what Jesus is saying in this, give us today our daily bread. Not just gimme, gimme, gimme for myself and others, but also Jesus, help me slow down. Help me slow down and take notice and see what you've already blessed me with. And when I do that, help me to say thank you. And as I do that, change my attitude. Right? Give me more joy. Give me more gratitude. Give me more generosity. Give me a heart like yours. Use this short little video coming up to do that right now. To slow down, to see some of the ways that God's already answered that prayer for daily bread, and to say thanks. This little video helped me to remember some of the things that I need to be grateful for, that I need to be thankful for, that I didn't slow down long enough to see we're part of God's daily bread. Now, here's this week's challenge. Okay, this is the one thing that I want you to do out of this message if you don't do anything else. All right, and that's this. Figure out a way to build thanks and gratitude into your daily life this week. Figure out a way to build thanks and gratitude into your daily life this week. And then write down what you're going to do, and then start putting it into your schedule. Now, some of you might already have a plan, say, okay, I can do it this way. Maybe some of you are like, man, where in the world would I start? Well, if you're in the where in the world would I start category, start here with where Jesus does, with the Lord's Prayer. Okay? Pray the Lord's Prayer daily. Just set aside a time to do that. Pray the Lord's Prayer daily. And then when you get to the give us this day our daily bread, just pause right there. Pause at daily bread and use that pause as an opportunity to think about the things that you have, the things that you've been blessed with, the life that's in your body, the air you're breathing, other things that you're seeing. Just think about those things and then pause and say thanks for those blessings. Right? That's one way to make sure that you schedule that into your life. And that's the one thing, if you do it, that I think is going to help adjust your attitude and move you toward a better place. So take the challenge. Do that this week as you think about our conversations about daily bread. Give us today our daily bread. What are we saying there? Lord, give us what we need. Lord, give us what we need so we're not tempted to worry about what you provide. And Lord, keep giving us what we need every day. Because while your kingdom might come tonight, we might also be here tomorrow. And tomorrow's also going to have needs. And Lord, in the tough stuff and in the big issues, we're boldly asking you for miracles. We are boldly asking you that you fix the whole thing. But if we find ourselves in the desert, if we find ourselves in the wilderness like the people of Israel, then Lord, give us manna in our wilderness. Give us exactly what we need for the needs of this day to make it through. And Lord, as you give us what we need, and as you also give us a lot of that big list of things what we want, God, keep us from ingratitude. Keep us from ingratitude. Keep us from thinking that we did this by ourselves. Help us to see that these are gifts that come from you. Help us to see that they're gifts, and keep us, as we get things from you, keep us from letting those worldly values kind of crowd you out and become more important than you are. God, give us kingdom values with things. Kingdom values like gratitude and contentment and generosity. And most of all, Lord, help us to see that this daily bread, these daily needs, it's not just physical, it's not just emotional, it's not just relational, it's spiritual. Help us to see that you are more essential than anything else. See, here's what's really going on here. God who provides all of our needs, God who invites us, who says, ask boldly like a little kid. Ask boldly, ask persistently, ask about anything and everything and the small things and the big things. And yes, say, gimme, 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 gimme. That same God also says, pray, give me. Understand that Jesus, when we're praying this prayer, is also saying, I want to give you myself. And in teaching us to pray about daily bread, he's teaching us to say, hey, pray about having a deeper and fuller relationship with me. In Matthew chapter 4, Jesus quotes the Old Testament. He says, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. John 1:14 takes that word and says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And then later in John chapter 6, verse 35, Jesus says, I am the bread of life. See what Jesus is doing there? Manna becomes man. Jesus is our daily provision. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and Jesus is the bread of life that fills all of our spiritual hunger. What Jesus is saying is, Jesus is the one who fills our emptiness. He's saying that Jesus is the one who stills our inner longing. Jesus is the one who calms our troubled hearts and restless spirits. Jesus is the one who fills the holes that we've made in our relationship with God by forgiving our sins and helping us start fresh and giving us a brand new heart. And Jesus is the one who eases the burden of all that worry that we're carrying around and that's weighing us down, by taking it on himself and by carrying it on his strong shoulders. And doing that so that you're not carrying it all by yourself. Also reminding us of his character, that he is both big enough and that he cares enough to help. I need that pretty much every day. How about you? How about those that you're praying for? Give us this day our daily bread. And again, here's the challenge. I really want you to take it this week. The challenge is, if you don't do anything else, do this one thing. Build time in your life daily to slow down and find a place of gratitude. To slow down and notice those and build gratitude into your daily experience this week, especially if you happen to be in one of those desert places. Build in gratitude, write down what you're going to do, and put it in your schedule. Next week, come back as we talk about the concept of forgiveness and what God does to undo the messes that we made.
Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before Him. So open up the gates, make a way before the King of Kings. Who comes to save, he's here to set the captives free. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb stop the Lord Almighty? Who can 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 stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before Him.
We are very glad you were able to join us for worship this morning. If this is your first time, please let us know you were here. Text the word "new online" to 619-493-4001. Concordia loves to pray for the needs of people and the world. Please add your prayer needs to our list by texting the word "prayer" to 619-493-4001. You can leave your prayer need there. Thank you.